One Piece. One Piece is a show about a stretchy dude, a swordsman, Rudolph the Blue-Nosed Reindeer. Oh my god, Rudolph the Blue-Nosed Reindeer, oh my god. Anime Kurt Cobain and anime Eminem, a redhead, a liar, a fishman, and a certified alligator, certified crocodile. Wop. It was funnier back when I wrote the script. Okay. So actually almost a month ago now, which is pretty crazy, I began my One Piece journey of a show that has over 1,100 episodes. And it's really funny to me because with a show like One Piece that has so many episodes like that, I really do start to wonder why so many people stick around so long. I mean, why out of so many other shows and so many different anime, why do people stay with One Piece? I guess what I'm saying is, what was really the first major moment that hooked so many people so that they kept watching for so long? What was really the first moment in One Piece that truly demonstrated how great this show can be? And by doing so, hooked so many people on the show? I don't need to explain it anymore. I think you guys saw the title, so... Y'all, I just want to say real quick, thank you guys so much for all the support on my last video. I read a lot of the comments and stuff, and you guys seem really chill, so thanks for welcoming me to the community and stuff. Also, speaking of my last One Piece video, I covered up to the beginning of the show, up to sort of the Baratier storyline, or the Baratier arc as you would call it. However, what I didn't cover was the arc that comes right after Baratier, Arlong Park, and this truly was probably the moment that really hooked me on One Piece and is the reason that I'm at like Alabasta now, which don't worry, I will talk about in a later video. And just to start things off, one of the things that I think is really great about Arlong Park is how it really has a great sort of less is more approach to its storytelling. I mean, Arlong Park is only 14 episodes. To put that into perspective, man, Alabasta is 38 episodes. Wano is 191 goddamn episodes. Arlong Park over here, on the other hand, is 14, and yet somehow it's still really amazing. It's amazing at building the characters, it has some amazing fights and emotional moments, and honestly one of the best villains in the early show. Oh, and by the way, I know in my last video I tried to keep it spoiler free. Since I'm really only talking about like one arc in the show here, I'm sorry, but... So probably the very first thing I noticed about this arc as soon as we enter Arlong Park is how noticeably the tone changes. I mean, you know, sure, like Baratier wasn't all like sunshine and rainbows or whatever, you know, it definitely had some dark-ish moments, but overall it had a pretty goofy villain, some honestly, I would argue, fairly cheesy messaging, and not particularly super high stakes, even if the Zoro and Mihawk fight is still crazy brutal. However, the moment that we get to Arlong Park, it is a completely different atmosphere. First off, we get introduced to the main villain like right away. Arlong, there he is, right out the gate. This followed by the really creepy atmosphere of Arlong Park with the fishmen and the destroyed villages really starts to bring a sense of terror, and obviously that sense of terror is only heightened by the absolute WTF reveal of Nami apparently being evil? What? Now obviously pretty much everybody watching the show like nowadays obviously knows that she's not actually evil. I mean obviously why would she be in all of like the manga and the show's marketing like 20 years later if she was evil? But still, even knowing this, it's still a crazy reveal. Even some of the little moments here work to make a pretty brutal atmosphere. I mean, for example, like when this little kid comes up to Nami and says that Arlong killed his dad, I mean, goddamn, like I know that One Piece is a show about pirates and all, but like even for One Piece, like that's a little brutal, man. However, all of this eeriness and suspiciousness is very, very well balanced by the crew's dynamics here. I mean, in these first few episodes of the arc, there are still some really funny moments, and we really get to see the crew interact a lot. And honestly, it's really fun to have this contrast of these fairly lighthearted characters with pretty lighthearted interactions with each other navigate through this eerie, dark landscape. I also absolutely love Zoro's scene where he lunges into the water and Nami still saves him, even though that she's supposedly evil. And of course, probably the moment you've all been waiting for me to talk about, the decision to stab Usopp, like,
What?
Again, this is similar to Nami's reveal, where it's pretty obvious if you've seen like any of the show's marketing recently that Usopp is obviously going to survive. But still, it is absolutely crazy, and they really sell it too. Now, the reveal that Nami stabbed her own hand is actually kinda obvious if you look back, but at the time you're watching it, it's actually insane, and all the blood going everywhere too really makes it seem like Usopp was indeed actually stabbed. And then we get the reveal, of course, of Nami's backstory. And seriously, Nami's backstory honestly might be the best 2 or maybe 3, I don't remember, episodes of the show that I have watched in a long time. It is absolutely brutal. And of course, I'm going to talk about what I'm sure you all want me to talk about. Yes, Bellamir's death is absolutely insane. And you especially feel the desperation of Nami and Nojiko when this asshole fishman just comes and kills their mom. Again, I feel like Nami's backstory is the kind of thing that we've seen in like a lot of movies and TV, to the point where it's sort of a cliche at this point. But I'm serious when I say that One Piece just does it in such an amazing way that it really makes you completely forget how sort of cliche this is in the first place. It's really well done. Nami's backstory is definitely the closest I've gotten to crying so far while watching this show. Now, I know that a lot of people say, like, oh, Chopper's backstory is so sad, Chopper's backstory is brutal, it's so incredibly sad, and you'll cry when you get to it. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Chopper's backstory, and arguably I think that it might even be better than Nami's backstory, but I honestly don't know if it's sadder. Now, I know that I probably just made a lot of people angry by saying that, so, yeah, I mean, it's my opinion, y'all, so.
But y'all, probably the most brutal part of this entire thing, if I'm being honest, has to be where the Marines find basically all the berries that she's been saving up for 8 years. Like, imagine spending 8 years of your life working towards something. Then a bunch of Marines show up and are just like, actually, yeah, no, we're gonna be taking this, if you don't mind. Like, damn. And then it just gets even more brutal from there, and she goes back to Arlong, and he makes it very clear that, yeah, she's been double-crossed. Oh, and also, not to mention, Nojiko gets, like, shot, as if, you know, we needed something to make it even worse. And the whole thing is really, really well done. And now, welcome to the part of the video where I rant about Arlong and why he's such a great, great villain. The reason I think that Arlong is such a great villain is simple. He is just downright evil. He is just so mean. He has absolutely no moral code and no regard for human life at any capacity. He does not care. This guy will literally do anything to get his way. He is not sparing anybody. He is basically just pure evil. And honestly, I love it. Do you guys remember when Puss in Boots 2 came out and everybody was talking about, like, oh my god, like, Jack Horner is the best character ever because he's just so evil? This is sort of like that for me. Like, we live in a time where so many movies and shows will try to make their villains all, oh, you know, sympathetic or have some kind of a tragic backstory or some reason to their madness or something like that. And it's so refreshing to see a villain that isn't any of those things. He's just an absolute maniac. He's also super, super big and intimidating. Like, this is definitely the most straight up just evil and intimidating villain we've seen so far in the show. And then, of course, there's the scene where she goes back to the village and oh my god, it's so good. And the villagers agree to fight. It's just really, really well written. And it's so good because even though it's this heavy emotional scene, it even does the really nice work of explaining a plot hole from before, because it doesn't really make sense at first that all the villagers would just believe that she would betray her own sister and whole village like that for money. Like, yeah, of course they knew. It all just makes sense in such a believable way, which, I mean, let's be honest, is not very easy to do in a show about pirates fighting a giant evil fish dude, you feel me? This is also where I started to notice that the music was somehow better. The soundtrack for this arc is insane, and I know exactly what you're probably saying right now, like, wait, my guy, the soundtrack for this arc is the same as all the other arcs. They use pretty much all the same tracks usually, at least for East Blue. And to that I say, yes, I know, and even though they're the same tracks, they're still somehow way better here. And that's because there's so much more emotion to them. I mean, like, literally when I was watching this, I very clearly remember thinking to myself, like, oh my god, the music is so good, it's so powerful. Even though that it's the same music that has been being used for all the other arcs. And that's because in the other arcs, you know, well, they still still had some good and pretty emotional moments. Let's be honest, they were nothing on the level of this arc. And so the music for some reason just feels so much more powerful here because, well, the story is more powerful. And of course we have this super iconic scene where Luffy puts the hat on her. And y'all, I'm gonna tell you guys a little secret. When I first watched this, dead ass, my reaction was, oh yeah, that's cool. He put the hat on her. You know, the hat is important to him. He put it, oh, that's nice. Luffy is a nice dude. But then I don't remember entirely when it was. It might have been when the credits started rolling on the episode, or it might have been when I watched some other people's videos or reactions on it, and that's when it really clicked for me. Oh, right, this hat is like the most important thing to Luffy in the entire universe, and the fact that he put the hat on another person's head is kind of insane. Also, I know I like to usually keep brain rot on this channel to a minimum, but I just gotta say, in my entire life, there are not very many scenes I've watched that quite compare to the aura of the Arlong Park walk. I'm sorry, but just seeing these four dudes just walk right into the center of Arlong Park has so much aura. It's amazing. I love it. The final fight is absolutely awesome. Everybody gets their chance to shine. Zoro has a big sword fight with this six-armed fish dude. Usopp has an absolutely awesome fight with this other fish dude. Because, again, it shows how he's grown a lot, not just since he was first introduced, but even in just this arc alone. I mean, the way that he just gets up and is willing to fight, and not, just like run away like he usually would, is actually really endearing. Sanji's fight, where a lot of his underwater I kind of liked. It even sort of brought back around the only joke that I felt like really wasn't landing in this arc, which was him being an absolute simp. But while he's fighting this fishman underwater, he actually has a talk with the guy that I actually thought was pretty sweet, and while I'm not necessarily going to say that it made the joke any less annoying, it at least makes it a little bit more than just sort of a one-off gag, even if Sanji is the king of down badness. And of course, the Luffy versus Arlong fight is awesome. Again, I do wish that Nami did a little bit more in this fight than just sort of watch the whole thing and wait for the dudes to do pretty much all the work. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, the whole thing is still super powerful, and she's still an amazingly written character, but I do feel like maybe she could have done at least a little bit more in the fight, or maybe helped out a little bit more. It might have felt a little bit more cathartic. That's really my only nitpick with it. But bro, I mean, like, the way that Arlong's eyes change at the end of this fight is actually the stuff that nightmares are made of. Like, wow. Overall, it's just an amazing fight. And the little high five that he gives Nami at the end is super sweet. The 2 episodes after that, or it might just be 1 episode, I don't entirely remember, but I think it's 2 episodes, is also really awesome. I love just seeing the crew just have some downtime, and like, what do they do in their downtime? Do they party? Do they, I don't know, work on their skills or whatever? I also really loved just like the last few seconds of this arc, where Nami says that her new tattoo is of a flywheel and a tangerine, and it zooms out to Bellemere's grave with, yeah, as you could guess, a flywheel and a tangerine. Sure, I know that that's a little bit cheesy, but wow, that is one hell of a way to end an amazing arc of television. Or manga, depending on what if you're reading or watching. So yeah, thank you guys all so much for watching. Sorry this video took like forever to make. I will admit that I was kind of slacking, I'll give you that. However, I can assure you that the next few videos coming up are going to hopefully come out a lot sooner than the break between this video and my last One Piece video. I already have some new stuff planned, so don't worry. And yeah, I'll see you next time.